Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy. This is As the Wheel Turns, so the days are our rides. I'm going to be going over some industry stuff, and this particular topic is sales, sales, sales. You know, you got that little jingle from some, we got sales, dun, 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 dun. We got sales, you know, that kind of thing that just gets stuck in your head, and you're like, what, why, where, huh? Well, you know, the promotions and products and placement and timing and all that stuff is researched and calculated and all these things. You know, it's kind of like the mentalist version of trying to get you to buy things. Um, some people just, you know, we're broken, we're not going to buy anything at all. That doesn't work on them. But for those who are just easily, I don't want to say easily swayed, just are already kind of considering certain things, it just kind of pushes them over the edge of purchasing those. Well, let's take a look at today's sales. After the COVID downfall, we're trying to climb back in with over inventory and all kinds of things. And I'll be picking on one of the Specializes products in addition as an example. And on top of that, I want to talk about where does the sale come from? And is it really, I mean, the real question is it really a good sale? And the thing is, you know, if you're very avid cyclist or avid mountain climber or whatever, you tell me what your event is or what you want to do or what you are doing, and there's going to be an opportunity somewhere like, I kind of need extra of these. You know, either it's tubes or clips for climbing or a chalk bag or whatever it may be, or something you had your eye on, and it goes on sale and you're like, oh, I've been thinking about getting one of those. Well, the sale is, you know, just the trigger of like, oh, I want to go buy that. And if you're in that particular, you know, sport, let's just say, you can justify it, right? You get the use out of it. Think about it this way. It's like, okay, I bought myself a bike and I spent more than I wanted to. But if you ride it avidly, you get the value out of that. And it's really almost priceless. I'm not trying to schmooze you to buy anything bigger in that nature, but realistically, if you need it or that's part of your healthy routine for mind, body, and soul, that's a great investment, regardless of how much more you may have thought or tried to pay for it. But the rest of us are kind of like, I thought about maybe getting into cycling or something like that, or another sport, and the price is going to be a barrier because it hasn't been justified yet to purchase. Well, here comes the funny thing. I'm like, we're going into a major holiday, and it's one of those big sale holidays. And I worked big box retail, so it's one of those things that they plan months in advance, placements of ads and what products purchased and all those things. And these go into where a mix of items that are going to try to sell and try to bring people in, and there's things called loss leaders. So yeah, this is going to sound like a whole business 101 on marketing and sales and production and so forth, but I wanted to bring this to light in a sense. When you're looking at margins, and parents and I had our bike shop in Park back in the day, and you had these percentage margins, right? And you had higher margins on part sales and accessories, sometimes clothes, in addition to bikes, but the bikes were less margin, but heavier lift to get to market because you got to pay somebody to put it together, service it, sell it. It's a bigger ticket item, so it's more tied in tied up money, and it shrinks the actual margin even more, right? I mean, it's versus just putting a thing on a shelf and somebody comes by and buys it, and you have a deeper margin there. So when you're looking at big box stores, looking at small retailers, they have a cost, right? They have overhead. And what is overhead, right? It's your insurance, it's your employees, it's your benefits you give your employees, if you can. It's electricity, it's the rent, it's all those things. Break it down almost per day of operational expenses. You have to make that much in profit just to keep on. And that is a tough squeeze. Well, when you're looking on sales, you know, as an inventory perspective, you're like, oh, I need to like, okay, these have been sitting here for a long time. Move that, and you're doing turns per year. So 3 to 4 turns on a particular model of inventory is something that they're shooting for more if they can. And then you have a scale up and scale down thing. So, okay, what does that mean to sale and sale prices? Well, there's been a lot of throwing out there. It's like, okay, we got overstock inventory. They inflated the prices during COVID, so the actual sell prices are back to where they were back in 19. But the underlying thing of that is it costs them more to produce, it costs them more to ship, it costs more to borrow the money to have that stuff made because interest rates are higher for big corporations. It affects everything in the bottom line. So it is and it isn't. Okay, so if you need that thing and you want to get it and it's available, go for it. If you can justify if you're already doing it. If it's something you haven't gotten into, that's where the sales reflection of this weekend is going to show that a lot of the customer influence across all markets, we're talking like all outdoor markets, it's going to, I bet you money is going to be soft. Reason being is people know it's on sale, but they don't really need it. And it's not a deep enough sell for them to really jump on it. Why do I say that? Well, I'm on a micro level of my business, right? And that really is like a first line barometer because my stuff is a lot more less expensive for big ticket items. So those people that can't afford that $5,000 road bike, they're looking to use, and they sometimes come across me selling a used bike that's under $1,000. You know, that's a great value for them for getting into something. A question came up this week from one of our YouTubers out there, and he goes, hey, I bought, you know, an older Trek carbon road bike and it has Ultegra on it, the same bike, and it's great. Is it still comparable to bikes today? And even though it's maybe 10 or 15 years old, I'm like, absolutely. Reason being is you got yourself a full carbon bike. Yeah, the tech might not be totally up there as what the newer ones are with electronic shifting or what have you, but you're not paying that, but you're still getting the higher end performance, a nice frame, and even though it might be a little bit older, it's a great value, and it really, you know, it'll blow the doors off of any $1,500 to $2,000 entry level road bike because those are aluminum with the bottom of the bottom componentry, and this one is going to be a lot better for you to do a lot more riding. So there goes the value, you know, so a lot of people are going to be going into those directions. You know, I have a buddy that doesn't buy anything new. He buys everything used, or another person is like, I don't buy anything new. I buy it used because that's how I get into it and that kind of thing. And, you know, it's a lower lift investment and they get into it and that's great. So when you look at big sales for new stuff, it's like, okay, like, oh, well, you know, maybe I'll stock up on some tubes. They're actually on sale, or a chain, you know, componentry, small bits and so forth. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of big bike pushes for bikes going out. Well, number one, a lot of people already bought them because we all went through COVID. And if they got into it, they may have upgraded, but they've upgraded very strategically to get a bike that's a little bit more better fit or a little more what they want, or they got into the upgraded, but most likely it stayed within the used or the lower price point and they've already purchased. It's kind of like the market's been beaten down a little bit, and that goes for all outdoor stuff. It's like it's already out there and you got too much stuff and now it's like on these sales. Well, these sell trends started when everything started dropping off last November. So we're closing into almost a full year here of downward sales and over inventory scenario. And this is going to have to flush out. And the companies like Specialized are coming up, we're releasing their stuff they've been holding back on, like, oh, we got this new SL8 frame. Try to get more excitement and people are getting into it. that bike starts at $6,000. I mean, it's not like normal individuals are going to go, oh, it's time to go get that. You know, it's not like another one of our YouTubers made a really correlation. It's like, oh, there's this new componentry that came out and I saw it on video. Can I get this at the store? And the bike shop guy goes, oh, well, it's still, that was a prototype and you're looking at 9 months out. You know, But then you relate it to Apple. It's like, okay, oh, we got this new phone, we released it, and here it is. It's the new Model X number what, and it's like, oh yeah, I just saw all that. I want it now. Oh, okay, $1,400. So the thing is like in the cycle industry, a lot of the stuff gets filtered out, like the SLA, like, oh, this is all nice and fancy, but the people with the money for those are not. It's kind of like it misses its mark. Which is kind of funny because where in a sense you're going to find now is the SL7s from Specialized. And this is where I'm picking on Specialized, but this goes with all brands. So I'm just using an example because this is the numbers that I looked up this morning because I saw an email of 100 billion emails of everything's on sale. And I'm like, okay, let's click on this one and check what they have. Well, they have the Tarmac SL7 and it's on sale from, I think it was like $8,300 or $8,500. And they have it on sale for $6,400. It was almost like $2,000 less. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good job. But is it really a sale or is it just going down to the price where it was? Okay, so I looked at the last year's, the 2022's model. MSRP was like around $8,000 or something like that. It had the same Di2. So when you're looking at bikes, I mean, like the SL7 is a good example because it'll be the same frame. They may mix the componentry a little bit through year to year, but it's kind of the carryover for a few years before they can, the R&D or is paid off from that model, then they can release the next one, which is a SL8. Okay, so I'm getting long-winded on this, but this is the funny thing. I came to a 2021 SL7 bike and MSRP. And I'm like, wow, the MSRP is $5,000. I was like, what? Okay, I got to dive in a little bit. I did dive in. There's a little bit more to it. I mean, it's the same frame, pretty much. And the wheels are probably pretty close. But the Di2, it's still Ultegra, but you got a change from 11-speed to a 12-speed Di2. That was the difference of the price shift. But if I'm thinking to myself, $3,000 for one more gear? Ooh, that's a lot. I mean, that's kind of a big kind of ouch, right? I mean, I don't know if I'll even notice that difference of that one cog in the back for $3,000. I'm definitely not going to feel a difference from MSRP levels. And still yet, I mean, not to say they have any of those still left to sell. I mean, obviously that has already gone to sale off, the little different kind of sale. But when you talk about that, it's like, okay, you put it in perspective. It's like, okay, they bumped up because it had nicer stuff, puts it in the $8,000 market, then we're putting it down to $6,500. But yet, just 2 years ago, it was before, it was even after COVID. It was not before COVID. It's like, oh, it's $5,000. So what I'm saying is, there's some truth to those rumors out there that the sale prices are still over what the MSRP was a few years ago. That's a prime example. Not everything, obviously, and I'm just picking on Specialized on this particular one. And there's probably some other tidbits and so forth. And somebody that watches this will be like, "Well, they have this and this isn't." Yeah, that's fine. But the overall notion and question, and also the concept behind it is like, okay, well, and I checked the availability too. It's not like they had onesies or twosies. Like I've seen some sales you go on, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go check out this. Wow, the Marlin or whatever. They were selling like one bike and get one free, kind of thing about a year ago. And it was like you can buy one at one size, and then you can buy another, and then they only had one other size. So they may have more, but the time I got to it, it was like that was it, right? But when I went to check the SL7 Tarmacs for 2023s, they had them all in stock, all sizes. So keep in mind, if those miss the boat on this particular sale, they're going to have to do a little deeper discounts or something of that nature, right? I mean, yeah, it's like now, and here's the interesting thing is, back in the day in the 90s, I'm going to go back in time, and how all those bikes came to the shops was Trek and Specialized, they do the design, they do their order, they order it overseas or have it built in the United States. They had only an X number amount, and it's a huge lead time from that decision to when it gets to on a boat to get overseas into customs and gets over into the market or in their warehouses to ship out. And it's called pre-season orders. You know, you're like, oh, in July I make these. You know, now you make those orders like, okay, I'll take X numbers, but they're pushing those like, we've ordered these. We need to have you to commit to buy all these. Okay, so, and they're pushing that weight onto the independent bike dealers. And that was back in the day where they didn't have the Trek stores or the Specialized stores, which is InCycle or Pond. But here's the interesting bit about this, because back then they were forcing those numbers on shops to go, okay, we can kind of commit to that, you know, but they've always pushed a little bit of pressure on you. You know, and also they try to do like, oh, we'll get better dating on it, so you don't have to pay till June, July, August next year, or whatever. The thing is, they play those shell games like everything. They're pushing it on independent bike dealers. And it just occurred to me that all that inventory that they used to push onto the independent bike dealers, they get it out the door, get ready for the next stuff, and when you go to reorder, if you sold through something really good, they didn't have it for 3 months, and you're like, ah, crap. Then that's where a lot of bike shops would have the A, B, and C line, like I have in another video, but talking about that you would rely on the Jameses and the GTs and the Mongoose and the Schwinn when they're actually still good brands. And in that way you can still, you know, kind of jockey between them and still have that $400 bike that you were selling really good on, because most of those people were not brand sensitive. They were like, I just need a bike. Oh, that's a good one. It's very comparable to Trek. Okay, that's good. And that kind of thing. Well, fast forward 20 some years later, they have their own shops. Well, guess what? There's no more independent bike dealers that they can push this on, or they're less. And then they're in the game now, as they are now the independent bike dealer, because they are the corporate stores of Trek and Specialized and Pond. And now they get to hold the bag of the product that they may have missed the mark on. Where I'm getting on this? They're going to have to realize they really have to cut down the margins even further or something. Some promotional package coming into fall here. We're at the beginning of fall in the States and in Europe, so we're going towards the end season, and we've already had, let's just face it, a really weird year, and it's been kind of crappy sales everywhere at some point. And here we've only had 1 month of summer sales. Everything else has been junk. And going forward, and how it seems to be trending, being slow, it might be a hard stop, even though the weather's not stopping it. It's just like the economy itself is just breaking. It's, you know, it's just a hard, slow roll. My sales was slowed down, and it was like we were hot, and the weather's still nice. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't have the right mix of stuff. Maybe, not likely. I do have a little bit more inventory than I did in July, but you know, I'm not saying I'm not stopped, but it's slowed. You know, it's not as, you know, for a while there it was great. Like, man, I'm selling all, you know, it's like moving, and all of a sudden it's like, well, is it going to push back up, and maybe we have a little bit warmer, longer summer? I'm going to, you know, as an independent bike dealer, I'm not really a dealer, but an independent bike shop. You know, doing one of those things where, like, okay, I need to do adjustments. You know, what can I do to generate excitement? You know, people work on their bikes, maybe some discounts on tune-ups, that kind of thing. This is where I'm leading to. If I'm feeling the pinch now, these big boys are feeling the bigger pinch. And the big pinch for them, they can react to it a little slower because they have deeper pockets, but they're going to have to do something, you know, and it's going to be a little more aggressive. And you know, Trek likes to hold their cards close to them, but they're on their, what, 5th Trek Fest sale? this summer. So whatever they've been really pushing service too. So that's going to carry on. So you're going to start seeing discounts on tune-ups here real soon. You're going to see discounts on parts already, if not already. I mean, I did post one up on like my Facebook page, like 20% off of feedback sports stuff. Planet Cycler had it on sale for that, and also Jensen's USA, which is the most kind of, they're not vendors, you know, they used to be wholesalers back in the day, and they just do direct now to the customer, which is, you know, they bring the prices down. And you know, Jensen's had a little bit more variety of feedback sports. And feedback sports, if you don't know, they do which I have a video about that too, repairing bike stands for, you know, working on your bike. And they also have assortment of tools. Some of them are pretty nice and shiny, like this one here. I also have kits personally used. So I figured like, hey, if anybody's been watching my videos and want to get some of the hands on there, yeah, 20% off, that's not actually too bad, because as a, you know, like a business discount for me, I only can get 40, and that's if they have it in stock, because I don't buy from the second vendors at direct. But in that sense, a pretty good deal. And that's another thing I want to lead into is, you know, the margins. Right? What constitutes a good sale nowadays? And we had a conversation with another bike shop YouTuber, and he was saying that the margins on parts and accessories have shrunk too, which there used to be Keystone, which is double. You buy it for $50 and you sell it for 100. That has shrunk now to like I buy it for 65. We'll try to sell it for 100. Well, when you're looking at 20% down, that's pretty, you know, that only gives you like 10 to 15% profit. Okay, we're doing numbers here. Okay, when you look at bikes, and this is a big squeeze on bikes, because I've already talked about earlier, is when the bikes to independent bike dealer, you got to pay somebody to put them together, you got to pay somebody to fit it and sell it, and then you pay somebody to do the maintenance and back end of it. It's almost a loss leader, even at 30 points right now. That's before the sell price. And if you add 20% onto that, I can guarantee you a lot of those shops are negative. They're not making any money at all. So they have to try to make that up, selling the services and so forth to get out of it. It's just kind of generating that cash flow to just kind of push forward. So 20% off of bikes is a pretty good deal. 20% off of accessories and smaller parts where there's deeper margins, not as much. So that's what the perspective I want to give. So when, you know, they're doing 20% down, and honestly, a lot of these shops, if they're an independent bike dealer and they're, you know, putting stuff on sale, if it's a corporate sale, sometimes they'll get a rebate back from Trucker Specialized saying, okay, we've put this on sale, and you'll get an extra whatever to offset what they paid for it or going to pay for it, that kind of thing. But a lot of times when it's independent bike shops putting on their own sales, it's them eating the margin. So it's not that they have the Trucker Specialized. So there's a lot of back end stuff to all these sales are going on. And at the end of the day, well, what really drives, you know, people to go out and go buy something and that kind of thing is, right now, it's pretty hard, honestly, because a lot of stuff's already out there, and has changed so much. Also, people are still diving into the used market, and the used market prices are going down. I'm finding better stuff, and it's better quality, and it's, you know, it's a great opportunity for people to pick things up. And I've had several comments on a lot of my videos recently, like, "Hey, how about this?" And it's a great deal. And it's like, that's awesome. And you know, some of my videos have helped people encourage, like, okay, trying to take the scary out of used. Like, okay, you buy this, you look at a few things, got a couple checklist videos there to look at, makes you confident, like, okay, well, I know I'm going to be in about this. I mean, you already assume you're going to have to pay so much to get it going, but if you already have that in your head and you find a good deal and it still fits in your price range, that's a pretty significant empowerment, really, of purchasing. Because there is a lot of scary in the used market as I work on bikes, but if you know that you can take it to a bike shop, or if you're very good at working on bikes and you have that skill, that's great too. So with all those things, that's where it's going to take away from new sales. And you know, this has always kind of happened, but I think it's going to be even more inflated, because a lot of customer base that are trying to get in, or did try to get into these particular sports or activities were conditioned by COVID because there's a shortage. So they learn these practices. So let's say, example, I got myself a bike during COVID. It cost me this much to get it fixed up. I'm riding it and it's doing good. I enjoy doing it. Then I got another one from a guy like me, and I had a great experience. And I'm on my second one. I was like, oh, I want to go to snowboarding. You think that person's going to go into a new store and purchase that snowboard and boots and bindings and all the stuff that goes with it at retail price, even though it's on sale, when they know in the back of their mind, like, I'll get a couple things here, maybe some gloves, but that's kind of weird wearing somebody else's gloves, same thing with boots. But other than that, they'll probably buy their snowboard. If they find a guy like me or video like what to look for in a used board, and they'll buy a used board with some bindings, take it to a shop to be tuned up, which tune-ups for snowboards are not that expensive. I mean, they can be. I mean, don't be wrong. There's a range, but it's a lower lift than buying it new, just to get into the sport. And if you get into it, yeah, maybe a few years down the road, then you'll be willing to pay for that more expensive board. So I think that's part of our new buying condition, that we all got squeezed. It all follows the thing that we all learned how to work from home and make it work, that it's not going to be like it was ever again. It's gonna change. The used market's going to be a little more flourish. So that's where you see a couple, like Bikeless is another company that popped up recently in the last couple of years. It's like those kinds of things, like, oh, this is where really the market is really changing and building up these particular opportunities or services for those. Hey, that's why I'm here. I was, right off the gate already a need prior to COVID. Now it's even still there, even with this downward trend. It's still like, oh, I still probably could use a tune-up. And do I want to go to this, or do I want to go actually meet the guy that's going to work on my bike? That kind of thing, and have a little more. I mean, you don't get a service rap sheet of this mechanic that's working on your bike and has been working on bikes for whatever his training is. You can look at my website, and I've been through the thick of it. And even though, and I do admit, I don't know everything, especially when it comes to a little bit newer stuff, that's fine. But I have the skill set to figure it out, because I've been figuring out stuff for the last 30 years. It's just, oh, maybe read a couple manuals on it and read a couple, or watch a couple videos, and boom, done. I mean, it's like, it's not, if you're good at working on things, you can do this. And that leads to the other thing I want to bring out of this conversation, which I didn't list, but I saw in a video a few months back, and the guy was like talking about having his little shop in the Bronx and that kind of thing. It was a pretty cool little video, and hearing his story was really kind of neat. And he was just like, pretty much anybody across, could just open up a shop across the street. It's not like any kind of certification that you have to do. If you know how to work on your own bikes and you've learned how to do it and you watch them, I mean, now it's like the resources are huge, and you can just figure it out yourself and open up a shop right across the street. Yeah, that easy. And as you can figure, if you're very smart and be able to figure out a niche and all that kind of thing, do your due diligence of doing that and providing that service, or that's a need, it's going to happen. And when you look at the old traditional ways of learning how to work on bikes, like Barnett's, which is no longer, schools, that used to be a case. Basically, you go through all the Park Tool videos, and if you have a Shimano account, you can do the Shimano S training, and if you're in a bike shop, you learn some more stuff through there because they do some training and so forth. And but as an individual, if you want to do it yourself, you can. But you just need to be really smart about it, because there's a lot to it, and you want to definitely pick some brains before you jump into it, because there's liabilities. There's, you want to make sure you're insured and all that stuff. It goes with all businesses, but in addition to, it's not something you're going to make a lot of money at. Let's put it that way. Unless you have some kind of a cool little niche thing, or a product that you produce from that experience or kind of deal. But most people that are into the cycling are still into the cycling shops or have their own shops. They're really just basically people that are passionate about it and they really enjoy the sport. So much to the point they have actually compromised the making the wealth comes in a different form and not just money. It's actually, you enjoy what you're doing, you love your community, you love being part of it. If you make that sustainable, you're happy. I'm a happy dude, doing what I do. So when you're doing those things and you're doing it right, yeah, I do have stuff on sale. And, I try to drive sales, and of course, at the end of the day, I still need to make that living. But in the process of doing all that, hopefully, I'm having a very enjoyable experience, and I don't feel like I'm working. It's something I just become part of my daily life, and I get enrichment of it. If you can find something in your perspectives or lifelines, good for you. I mean, it's one of those things. I've done jobs like everybody has done jobs, and it's like, oh, this is rough. But anywho, back to industry. What we got? We got a lot of sales going on. My prediction, you can take it for what it's worth. It's going to continue. The projections over the summer is like we're going to take another 9 months to a year to dig out of this for the wholesaler level for pushing out products and so forth. There is some silver linings where some companies are showing a little bit of a profit. They may have done adjustments correctly, a little bit faster, and their product mix are a little bit better matched to what's out today, and they actually the price is down. But hopefully they can start really listening to the customer more and what their needs are, and bringing a better quality, more precise product to the market for a little bit less cost to it. And that way they're going to have to shift back what they did back in the 90s is volume versus we need to sell 100 of these at X rate number. And then they're all crap. We can't sell it for 10 grand because nobody's going to buy a $10,000 bike right now. So good deals to be had out there, but when you go and find something and there's like a full run size, you know they're going to be discounting them later. If you have your really hard on it and you have the means, just get it because you may not be there later if you're really into the sport and you can justify doing that. But if you're just getting into it, like the snowboard analogy, we're all kind of conditioned now, right? Like, do I really want to buy it new? Or here's another crazy example has nothing to do about outdoor sports, but we have a condo and we're looking at filling it up with furniture because they had no furniture and it's out of state, so we had to be creative. Well, I leveraged the Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and I got some stuff, some couches and so forth that are refurbished slippers like me, but in furniture out there. Bought it way less than I could have gone to Lazy Boy to go buy a chair. But then again, on some other things, Walmart had them like a table thing way cheaper than I could buy it used. So, just a little bit of clicking on the internet and checking and like, oh, okay, we can get this and that. And, we were not too picky. Obviously, this is second place. We just needed something, And I think that's where we're at. Some of those prices and some of those items, they have so much, like the bigger box, they're going to really drive those prices down. So it's like, oh, okay, $25 on this versus a 50 on used. Granted, the used one might be, older, nicer, something or other, but it's a table. It's a table. It's not, it just needs to hold stuff. It's not like I'm getting on it to do. I'm not looking for a performance factor. And if it's like a secondary thing or a room that you're filling up that you don't really live in that much, you just need stuff. There we go. So when you're looking at the industry as a whole, as in production of stuff, shipping it and getting into the stores, some of the stuff, yeah, it's on sale. And if you need it, get it. If you don't, if you're looking for that special magical deal, it probably is still coming on some of those things. But if it doesn't have the right size or what have you, you may miss out. But no harm, no foul if it's just something that's a secondary thing, like a secondary room, not your primary bedroom or whatever. So keeping that in mind, sales, sales, sales. So, working on this week, I got some leftover projects. I have picked up a Project One a bike that has a whole weird mix match of parts on it. So I'm going to make a group that matches this thing and make it more, traditional versus the level on it's crazy. You have like some Dura-Ace to Tiagra. It's like this, you're talking about 4 levels of, I don't know what they were thinking. I think it was just necessity when they needed to put it together. It's one of those deals, but it has some good bits on it, so we're going to try to do that. I got a couple repairs, and also got a crazy Japanese steel frame bike from the 90s, 80s, and I'm selling this. I'm going through it for a kind of consignment thing because the guy's like, it's weird. I looked it up, and the frames are going on eBay for like $2,000 or something ridiculously silly, and it's just weird. So I'm gonna do my magic to it and clean it up and present it and see what it goes for. But it's one of those things like, I have no idea, some weird Japanese brand that made in Japan. It has a huge, it's kind of like a touring style bike, which would be essentially gravel, and it would be pretty decent for recreational, but I don't know. It's just kind of weird. But anywho, well, thanks for spending time with me. I hope enlightens you on the weird parts of sales and marketing of the industry that we're faced, and thought it'd be very timely to talk about it during Labor Day weekend, where we have everybody under the sun having a sale, according to my inbox, my email. And it's just, what you really kind of think about it. But at the end of the day, if you get something, regardless if you paid a little bit more, if you utilize it and use it and write it, it's already justified. It's fine. It's one of those things you just don't want to not buy something and to not enjoy that sport or that experience because you didn't think it was justifiable. So there's a balance, right? And it's the same thing when you upgrade your bike, or what bike you get, or should I get certain gloves or certain helmets, those deals. So there we have it. Well, thank you for hanging out with me on a Sunday, and if it's beautiful in your neck of the woods, go out for a ride. I think it's still not high enough here, so I'm going to scoot out the door myself, get a little cruise in, clear the mind. And if you like these kind of t-shirts, I got some stuff in the shelf underneath. There's new designs coming. They're kind of fun that my mother-in-law are making. So keep an eye on that if you like kind of swag and support the channel. Anywho, well, thank you. And I hope you have a great, wonderful day and week. And until next time, from the garage.